time to tune in. Now another Sports Center, it's a movement.
This is all speculation at the end of the day. But hey, we got top 5 2022 NFL draft prospects. Mike, go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited about this. Starting off my list at 5, Kenny Pickett, right? So he goes to Pitt. He balls out. I mean, dude is a player, and some people might say, a lot of people have him as like the number 1, number 2 quarterback in this draft class. I have him number 5 for the simple fact that by the time the next NFL season starts, he'll be 24, right? So like, how much upside does he have? And to kind of put that in comparison, Lamar Jackson's a year older, right? And he's already won an MVP, been to the playoffs, and Kenny Pickett is still in college chilling. So I feel like he needs to go into a situation where they kind of have some pieces, and he just can go in there, be a point guard. He moves well, he scrambles well, he gets through progressions well. I just don't know how much upside he has, which is why he's like my number 5.
Okay, gotcha. Isaac, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is guy from UCLA, Dorian Robinson Thompson. I think it's or Thompson Robinson, one of those. But he intrigues me, man. He's very raw. But the last month, he's put some really good tape on out there, man. Like he's a dynamic threat, stupid athletic, but he's also shown the ability to go through his reads. Like he's not just like a jitterbug in a bottle or lightning in a bottle. He can actually go through and make the progressions. He has the NFL arm. He's got solid arm strength, solid accuracy. I mean, honestly, I see him, and if he goes into the right situation, I think he could be a pretty solid player in the league, in my opinion.
Love it. And then, Mike, who do you got for number 4?
Yeah, number 4, I got Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati, right? The fact that he has Cincinnati in the playoff conversation lets you know what kind of team they have and what kind of leader he is on the offensive side of the football. Again, I think he has a few things he needs to work on, like every single quarterback in this class. This isn't like a top-heavy quarterback class. I think like the height of it, you'll get yourself, a replacement kind of level starter like that Kirk Cousins range would be like the best quarterback in this draft. But then you got some guys that are going to get overdrafted, and I think he might be one of them. I think he's somebody that if he comes to a system like a Vikings, for example, and sits behind a Kirk Cousins or something like that, kind of learns how to do his progressions, learn how to be a professional a little bit. I think he could absolutely flourish. But if he goes to a situation where they're going to say like, hey, you're on the Broncos and you're starting day 1, I think it's going to be a problem. So, but I do like his upside. He does make good progressions, and he's very athletic. So I got Desmond Ridder as my number 4 QB prospect in this draft so far.
I love that. And then you see the growth too. I mean, 2018, 2,400 yards, 2019, 2,100 yards, 2,200 yards, 2020, and then boom, 3,000 yards, 2021. And on top of that, he's getting yards on his feet as well too. You see that, and what's exciting too is I show growth. His numbers in rushing yards has actually went down. 2018, 572 yards, 650 yards, 2019, 2020, 592 yards. And then this year, only 342. Season isn't quite over yet. But again, very, very, very exciting because you see what he can do with his legs, but also as well with his arm. You show that growth there. So to have someone with that growth and then also to be in very big games, face off against very important teams, this is exciting. This is a guy who we could see a Daniel Jones type situation who could possibly go, top 5 or something like that, So, anywho, Isaac, what's your top 4? What's your number 4 pick for 2022 NFL draft prospect?
So I kind of struggled as to who I wanted to put at 4, but I think I settled on Malik Willis as my 4th prospect out of Liberty. He's somebody that I think has the most upside out of anybody in this draft, but he's also crazy raw as well. So he needs to round out a lot of parts of his game. But when you see the tape, you see somebody that has like, Deshaun Watson level athleticism and moxie. He elevates everybody on his offense around him. And I mean, he's at Liberty. So he's not, Hugh Freeze has done a great job with that program, but it's not like he's throwing to 4 or 5-star recruits. So it could be also one of those situations where he gets to the league, just the raising and talent that he'll be throwing to. Maybe he realizes talent just like that. But if he can just, not be so skittish in the pocket, which I think he can fix. I can see him having a solid career because, I mean, the arm is there. He makes all the throws. He's got everything you want, and he's a fierce leader for all intents and purposes. Everybody you talk to at that organization, they rave about his ability to lead men. And if you're a quarterback, to me, that should be like a top 2 trait. You're leading these men who have families, children, they're playing with for their livelihoods. You got to be able to lead a bunch of alpha males, and I think he can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's he's not on a team where they're absolutely stacked at receiver too. So you put him in a situation where, well, they do have great receivers. There are more options, and something he can get more comfortable with a good O-line. We can see that development. I don't quite see the same development as Ritter, but Isaac, you hit it right, the nail right on the head there, is that he's potentially the number 1 best prospect in this entire draft. The upside is absolutely amazing. Then there's the humility, the amazing man of God that he is and stuff. I follow him on Instagram and stuff, man. And everything's God this, God that, my team, my family. He's a very selfless person. So you definitely want someone like that at the helm of your team. So maybe not a day 1 starter, possibly sitting out his rookie year, but very excited. He's somebody, I mean, you could just see him on a team like the Detroit Lions. Hence, they need a better O-line, but so they could block for him and hopefully some receivers and much more. But seeing someone like that could potentially light up an entire city, very, very, very exciting. Then we go to number 3, Mr. Mike Williams. What do you got for your number 3 prospect?
Yeah, so for my number 3, we see this guy every year from UNC, known as a basketball school, but Sam Howell, right? He's been very, very, very consistent his whole time there, around a little bit above 3,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, less than 10 interceptions every year. It just feels like he's kind of tapped out. I think he can work on his progressions a little bit more. He's been very steady with some of the weapons that they've had, but I'm just curious to see. I think he can be a star in the league, but it has to be the right system. Like he's of the other 2 I named, I think he has a higher floor than both of them. And I think his ceiling, if he can get in the right systems, a little bit higher. He's consistent. He's a great leader of men, just like Isaac was talking about with Malik Willis. Very smart player. You know, UNC usually has very smart quarterbacks that come from that system. So I think he's a guy that could come in this year, and I think that it could play right away for a specific team, like maybe the Steelers. You know, if they're in that range, they need a quarterback. I think he'd be somebody good up there. Not a strong arm, like, you know, not a cannon like Aaron Rodgers or anything, but he can make most of the throws all over the field, and he's a very, very smart player. So I think I would be comfortable with most teams drafting Sam Howell.
Love it. Isaac, what you got for number 3?
For number 3, I fell on Carson Strong out of Nevada.
Okay.
I think when you look at the tape, he's the prototypical quarterback, big guy, big arm, not mobile, but also, you know, he's not Phillip Rivers in the pocket either. You know, he does enough to move around and, you know, get yards, but his bread and butter is going to be just precision, you down from the pocket. And he makes all the throws. He gets down to his 5th read very often. Like he processes the field, I think, the best out of all the prospects. And I think he's somebody that, honestly, if he goes to the right system, he could be a superstar. Because he makes the throws, and that's what the name of the game is in the league now.
Absolutely. And looking at these stats here, my goodness, I mean, 4,186 yards. That's amazing. 36 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Yeah, but again, it would be nice if, I mean, I would say he would be this year's equivalent to Kyle Trask. You know what I mean? Like, big numbers guy. But if not in the right system, it could not work out for him, and we could just see him as a career-long backup, you know. So hopefully he can land in the right situation, a place. I could see him in a place like with the Denver Broncos, right? A place where, yes, they love to feed their running backs, but also love to have a nice and historically, you know, Denver's always had pretty good wide receivers. So have him on a team like that or something like that. So whereas a team maybe like, you know, you could argue, man, Denver has a lot more pieces than, say, like a Detroit Lions or something like that, right? So, or maybe even see him on a team like, start a little mess here, Cleveland Browns. I can see that. All right, going on to number 2 here, Mr. Mike Williams. What you got?
I got Isaac's number 4 player, Malik Willis, right? I think I'm really high on his upside. He came from Auburn. He came out as a highly touted recruit. He just wasn't going to get burned there really. And he's done some things with weapons at Liberty that are not close to the equivalent of what he had at Auburn, not close to what he'd have in the NFL. I think by far he has the highest ceiling, but he also has a little bit lower floor than some of these other prospects. But I just think that his work ethic that you've consistently seen, we've heard about a little bit again. Like we don't know unless we're there, of course. But I've never heard anything like negative about his work ethic, etc. And I think he's a guy that if he does process the game well, I think he processes the game better right now than Jalen Hurts, and he has about the same mobility as Jalen Hurts, right? So I feel like if you can get a guy like that and get him in a good system, I feel like the perfect system for him would be the 49ers. Obviously, we got Trey Lance, so that's not going to happen. But if he would have came in with like a Kyle Shanahan type player, he would be an absolute animal. But I think he's a guy that I believe could be a starter, kind of figure it out, get some bumps and bruises and not be thrown off, not ruin his career as he throws a few interceptions, takes a few hits. But I do like him a little bit more than Isaac does. And I will say this, I have a notable omission to my list. Carson Strong is not on it just because he has that prototypical QB, stuff going on. He's developed throughout the years, but like I just feel like in big games he hasn't shown, and he has like negative 600 rushing yards his whole career because he's like not. And it's not even an exaggeration. He literally has like negative 600 yards. So it's like if his first two progressions aren't there, he's going to get rocked. And I think in the NFL that's very dangerous. So I'm not as high on him right now as a lot of people, but I think he's definitely somebody that will absolutely be a first rounder in this draft. I think he probably would have went in like the second or third round last year, though.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Isaac, what you got? Number 2.
So my top 2, I kind of struggled with how I wanted to do it. I think for my 2, I'm settling on who Mike mentioned earlier, Desmond Ridder. I like that guy's moxie, man. Like that guy just, when you watch him play, you can tell he loves the game. And the moment's not too big for him. Like you mentioned, he brought the Cincinnati Bearcats to national relevance. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that in and of itself is amazing. And I like what he brings to the table. I mean, he's got the mobility. He's got the arm. He's a fierce leader. He's not afraid of nobody. You know what I'm saying? So that's the kind of guy you want, when you're in the trenches taking grenades. So I'm pretty high on him. Of course, he does have things he needs to work on. He can get through his progressions a little bit better. But the things that I see that he needs to work on are things that he could be coached up to do. The things that he does inherently are things that you can't coach. They just you either have it or you don't. And I see that dog in him. And that type of dog is usually good enough to mask whatever inefficiencies a quarterback has if he continues to have that fire at the league level.
Love it. I love it. And then Mike, your number 1, what you got?
So my number 1 is Matt Corral, right, from Ole Miss. I think if you look at his stats, something I can say about this man is he's been very, very accurate in college. And if you're accurate in college, generally that translates. I mean, like we're talking 72% his freshman year. His sophomore year, he didn't play as many games, but he had completed 59%. That was his worst year, right? New offensive system, etc. But then the following year, is at 71%. This year's at 68%, right? That usually translates well to the NFL. Dude has double-digit touchdowns on the ground. This year, he only has 20. He has 20 touchdowns in the air and 4 interceptions. So I think his decision making's good as well. Again, like if this was last year, he'd be probably late first rounder, early second rounder. But I think his consistent rise in that program and his decision making is like watching some more of his tape and watching some of them games, man. Like I feel like he's making the right decision almost every time. And some of those picks that I did see him throw, some of them were just really athletic plays or like miscommunication with the receiver. Like they weren't running the route that maybe they should have been running compared to what you see in their offense. So I feel like so far that's my number 1 prospect. I think he'll be very, very successful, has a great work ethic, and he's progressed pretty consistently over his college career.
Love it. I love it. Great points there. Great points. And Isaac, what you got? Number 1.
Yeah. So I have a notable omission as well. My omission is Sam Howell. Not because he doesn't deserve to be a top 5 prospect. I just saw that he didn't necessarily fall off a cliff because he's put up respectable numbers this year, but he lost most of his weapons from last year. A lot of them went to the league. Actually, all of them went to the league, and Daz Newsome, De'Ami Brown, Javonte Williams. And this year, I mean, granted, it's to be. I mean, you can see that when you lose that many people, it's going to be a little bit difficult for you to put up those same numbers. But at the same time, if you're that type of prospect, you need to be able to elevate those same people around you just the same. Nobody's gonna baby you, especially when you get to the league. So that was kind of my thing on him. But my number one, actually, I agree with Mike, is Matt Corral. And it's a lot of the same that I see with him that I see with Desmond Ridder, man. That guy's got that dog in him. Like, he doesn't fear anyone. He's fun to watch. And like you said, he's supremely accurate. And that's the name of the game in the league, man. If you got to get the ball to your targets, and he does that at an exceptional clip. He makes all the throws. He's got a solid deep arm. And I mean, if it's not there, he'll make plays with his legs. The only thing I want him to do is put on about 10 pounds of muscle, because his frame doesn't necessarily scare me, but I am a little concerned that it's very RG3 like. He's somewhat wiry, so get a solid nutritional regimen. Get in that weight room. I think that he'll be just fine.
I love it. All right, y'all. So that is our top 5 2022 NFL quarterback draft prospects. Let us know right down below in the comment section if you agree, disagree. I'm pretty sure we have a lot of disagreements, but that's all right. That's what we do here at Touchdown Nation. We chop it up with you, and we always interact with you guys in the comment section. So go down below. Let's talk about it.
Turn 100 for the touchdown, King Crown, gain inside, leading your town, hit you faster than the sound, bad boy, throw it down, yeah, I'm ill, not my will, don't Copperfield, fill the house, listen to the roaring crowd, drop a light, calm it down, Heisman, all the haters mouth, superhero hit them wow, packing more action than bing, boom, bam, pow, touchdown for the win, we live, subscribe right now.